The next part that I want to talk about is not really part of your GIT, but it's your salivary glands. And although it's not currently known why this happens, you there's something that occurs with prolonged bouts of vomiting called chipmunk cheeks, I think it's called. The more medical term for it is parottomegaly. Parotto meaning your parotid glands, megaly meaning big, and essentially causes your parotid glands to get swollen and causing the chipmunk appearance. There are two proposed mechanisms that I've seen when I scour the internet. The first is the pancreas releases some sort of stimulus that induces a change in your parotid glands, and the second is a enzymatic secretory dysfunction brought about by autonomic nervous system dysregulation. So enzymatic secretory dysfunction just means a dysfunction in the release of enzymes, and autonomic nervous system is your nervous system that controls involuntary things like enzyme secretions. I couldn't really find much more on that, unfortunately. Looking a bit further down, the stomach and the duodenum, or the Americans call it the duodenum. Um, the major problem with prolonged bouts of vomiting is ulcer formation, just like in the mouth, and that can be extremely painful. I've seen the bad end of stomach ulcers, and they can be extremely painful because you've essentially got a hole where which is no longer protected by the protective barriers that I previously talked about, and the acid is getting in there, causing extreme bouts of pain. The problem with that is, as the acid continually erodes the area, it can perforate through the lining, and just like esophageal tears, it can be potentially life-threatening. But the life-threatening aspect from that is mainly due to erosion of the major arteries around the stomach, causing severe blood loss. Again, with ulcer formation and chronic irritation, you're at the risk of increased risk of getting stomach cancer. And stomach cancer, like esophageal cancer, is potentially life-threatening. So the next area that I want to look at are the linings, i.e. your skin. And one of the things that I've seen with people who have bulimia is an increased incidence of acne. I've scoured the internet everywhere, and there is much debate as to the association between bulimia and acne, but it is something that occurs, and the only feasible ideas are coming from the realms of changes in hormonal balances. But that's all I could really find, and sorry I couldn't be more specific on that. The next area, the hair, obviously with malnutrition it starts to fall out. But one thing with bulimia is that aside from the hair on your head, you get excessive hair loss elsewhere. And I've seen people who are bulimic who essentially have beards, and they've got hair in extremely inappropriate places. I've seen it on the back, and this is something that does happen. The nails become extremely fragile, and also the skin generally becomes fragile and prone to becoming dry. The other lining that you need to think about is the eyes. And with prolonged bouts of vomiting, what you've got to think about is you're putting extreme pressure on your body as you're expelling the liquid. And what that can do is just rupture the little blood vessels in your eyes, causing something called a subconjunctival hemorrhage. Subconjunctival meaning beneath the conjunctival, which is the lining around the eye, and hemorrhage meaning blood loss. So, I mean, that's more of a cosmetic issue rather than a life-threatening issue, but it's something that can take many weeks to months to actually resolve if it's not, jumped on for treatment. The final area that I want to talk about is changes in the blood, and this is, I've talked about previous life-threatening issues, but this is something that is life-threatening in the immediate vicinity. So, with prolonged bouts of vomiting, you're obviously expelling a lot of hydrogen ions and chloride ions because the acid secreted by the stomach is hydrochloric acid. So that can result in lowered hydrogen ions in your blood and chloride ions. The chloride you don't really need to worry about too much, but lowered hydrogen ions in your blood can cause something called an alkalosis, alkaline blood, essentially. And that is not good. The tissues in your body they run in a very narrow pH window. So if the pH in your blood changes too much, they stop working, and that can be potentially life-threatening, obviously. The other ions that you need to think about are potassium ions, and with prolonged bouts of vomiting, that goes down, and sodium ions, which also go down, are causing hypokalemia, kalemia meaning potassium in the blood, and hyponatremia meaning sodium in the blood. And the more life-threatening one out of those two is hypokalemia, and that is mainly down to your muscles in the body. Your muscles need a very strict regulation of potassium in order to function properly, and with low potassium, you're running at extreme risk of developing heart arrhythmias, which is bad rhythms in the heart, which can essentially lead to complete heart failure and death. So, not a trivial matter by any stretch of the imagination. And for those of you who have been in hospital before, I hope you remember the doctors being extremely worried about potassium, giving you as many supplements as possible to try and correct that problem, because that is something that is immediately life-threatening. The other obvious thing is a loss of water because you're vomiting so much, and that can cause a general dehydration, which can obviously be corrected by water, but if you're not keeping anything down, that can be life-threatening in the immediate aspect, because it concentrates anything else in your blood, which can just, screw up the ion balance even more. So those are the those are the long-term effects of vomiting on the body. If I've left anything out, just please let me know, and I'll add it in the next video. But I hope that was useful, and thanks for watching.